Welcome to the Strength Coach 101 podcast. This is going to be episode 1 where we're going to go over how facility drives programming. Ultimately, the whole plan of this is to deep dive into topics that not always are taught in the classroom or that might not always be touched on as you're going through your internship to help either young coaches and sometimes even old coaches either revisit or maybe pick up something. So my name is Steven Linsmeyer, aka Coach Lins. Been doing this for 15, 16 years. I was at the college level for a decade between D1, D2, and then I've been at the high school level now for the past 6 years on top of private with a different facility before opening my own here for now the past 4 years. So been around it. One of my favorite parts is always setting up is, facility design. How do I want to lay it out to make sure that my program is set up for it, and that's something I want to touch on today. This story goes to two of my favorite spots was Lincoln Memorial. When I first walked in there, like I said, they never had a strength coach before, so it was a blank canvas. I walked in and they had that old school jungle gym with the weights for your lat pulls. It had 2 pull-up bars down the middle, so I'm like, all right, we gotta get rid of that. It had a Smith machine. It had 4 racks. It had enough to be like a great personal training gym, but really hard when it came to team, and especially how the organization was. It was just crap everywhere. So came in the first 2 weeks, first off, cleaned it. That was a big thing because it was dirty as heck. But then organized the layout of how I wanted to run stuff. With my programming, I do have Olympic lifting background, so I want to make sure we were able to do that in the facility. Also, how we're going to run the different teams when we have 20 more athletes. How are we going to set that up? So it was looking not only at the room, but also outside. It had 2 glass doors that would open up to the side to go to the hallway. And it's like, okay, can we utilize this space? So sometimes it's not just the space that you have within the weight room, but what's directly outside of it. So that one had a hallway, and it's like, perfect, we can use that. We were right off the gym. So I know early years we would use the upper echelon when it came to, we had 2 teams at the same time. So I had one in the weight room, one would be up there doing circuits. How do we set that up? Same thing happened when I went to Brookfield East. They had a different strength coach in there who had more of a powerlifting background. So racks everywhere, weights everywhere. Came in, got pictures in the organization of it. And at that time I was in sales with equipment. So I was able to kind of punch in, okay, we had this many racks. Here's what the layout was. So that first week, same thing, week or 2 came in, cleaned it out to make sure that I set it up to fit how my programming is or as best as it that we could. So then flow. You're going to have to understand how many athletes you're going to be working with. And then again, how are you going to have them go around? So like in here now, we have turf. We actually have some turf off to the side. Majority of my facilities, I never had turf. So you'd have to use hallways or different stuff like that. And then first starting off, I had 3 racks. So depending on how many athletes we had, that time I was working with a swim team that had 18 athletes. Well, 3 racks, you're not putting 6 deep. So how are you setting it up? When I was at Brookfield East, summertime, you're talking COVID summer, where you couldn't be, you had to keep everything kind of, ultimately what we do is we had people in packs, and you stay in your little pack of, 10 to 20 people. So we had the weight room, we had the hallway, and then we would actually have a dumbbell pit way over in a different spot. So we had to work around all 3 of them. So we had to write the programming up to fit those needs that we had and kept everything there. So ultimately, seeing how the layout and how you want your program to run, it really just comes off of how you have everything set up. I know in here currently, you can either do it where we have everybody do everything the same time. At Brookfield East, because of sometimes limitations with what they have, we actually break our groups up and have them go this group starts at 1, 2, 3, and then rotate on through. So those are different options you can do. When I was at University of Indianapolis, we had a turf outside. So we'd do our lift first and then head out to the turf and do different stuff outside. So again, really how your layout is and also timing and how your groups run is how you're setting it up. That's where you want to make sure you keep it is efficient. Poorly designed places. Right now, we just had actually the last couple of weeks is I help out at a high school here where the football team will come in at the same time we're lifting. So just because of experience, I know, hey, it's football team coming in. We have to then go to the racks first because we got about 10 to 15 minutes before they come in. So I want to make sure we get all of our rack work done because they're bringing in 50 to 60 athletes that we're not in their way. Luckily, that high school does have right around 20 racks. So we just take in 4 of them, boom, get it in, get out, and go somewhere else so that they're able to rotate on in. So that's another thing too, is being able to take in account everything else that's going on. But yeah, there's been a couple other ones where just not having TRX bands or not having other types of equipment. Like right now, we don't have enough room for when it comes to actual like rows or having your plate loaded stuff. So we do everything with bands. Whether it's lat pull down, we just grab 2 bands and do lat pulls with that. Seated row, bands. We use bands for a lot of different stuff. So that's kind of what we have to do here because of limited space. The next one is time, space, and athlete volume. So we touched on that real quick is, ultimately how many athletes you're having coming in. University of Indianapolis, man, beautiful facility. It was brand new when I walked in. Got super lucky. We were able to handle a team. I had to work with a swim team 6 a.m. and they would have 60 athletes. Well, when you have 12 platforms down the middle with double-sided racks and platforms on the backside, you're able to handle each platform 3 athletes, and you can sit down the middle and coach them all up and still get work done very well. And you're able to quick bounce both sides, keep everybody on the same pace. Hey, we're going from here to here to here without a problem. Like I touched at, there's certain times, depending on what high school I'm at, where it might not have enough equipment. I have to change up a little bit of what we're doing because of the size of the amount of athletes you got and the size you're at. Another one is I work with some middle school kids, and there are times where there are 40 to 50 of them. 40 to 50 in a weight room, trying to keep everybody on pace, on task, not always the easiest. So other times what we've done is just put them in a circuit. Here's 15 things deep. You and 2 partners, you're at that station, or you and 3 partners, you're at that station, and we're just going to be on the clock. So that's another thing too, is utilizing the clock to make sure you get in what you want. But these are all different factors you have to take in when you're writing your program. So through the years, I've been in, like I said, a couple different weight rooms on top of going to visit a bunch of them. When I first started off at Butler University, they had a long, skinny weight room. All the racks were on one wall. We had leg presses, dumbbells, and some different stuff down the other wall. We even there's just random poles. So we had to kind of work around the poles and how the different platforms were set up. And it wasn't easy just a quick go because the dumbbells were in that back corner. We had a cable crossover, so if you want to do lat pulls, they're there. So you had to switch up kind of how you wrote your program depending on the size of the team due to that. When it came to, like I said, University of Indianapolis, we could do whatever you want because you had the facilities. It was great. Lincoln Memorial, we ended up getting 4 more racks. We had 8 racks, so that helped out when you had our bigger teams. But before that, when you had 4 racks, you had to kind of figure out what you're going to do. You even switch up some of the lifts and use dumbbells instead of barbells. We would have 4 platforms. So what were you going to do with that? So it really depended on your limit of space. As compared to, right now, like I said, we have turf. I've never had turf before until here. So it's really nice to be able to do a lot more speed agility plyo work on there as compared to, but we have less racks. So we only have 5 racks where, say, Brookfield East, I had 10 racks. So you're able to do a little bit more with that. So again, design is going to really depend on your programming. Next one's going to be technology and how we utilize it. So as I've been coming through, technology has obviously gotten better with it. We have always, for me, I've always made sure to test vertical as much as possible. So at least we have some type of test going through that the athletes know, hey, we're going to test vertical once a week to see where you're at. Obviously, we'll do max testing certain times of the year, depending on where they're at. So that's a different way. But we've just added now VBT. So we went and got the OVR systems easy to hook up. And then now our athletes can go and challenge them. We're using them for, actually been using them for all of our, right now we currently work with youth from 8-year-olds all the way up to college athletes. But that middle school, high school, we just hook them up, let them go and say, hey, we want you to beat this. So it's been fun to see them compete using those, where when we're in our power phase, normally it would just go faster, or you're trying to teach them how to go move the bar fast and they don't understand that. So having the ability to have those metrics of the VBTs has been a game changer for us. Same thing when it comes to testing. The sprints is a different thing that we'll use is free lap system. So we're just timing and you're able to quick hand them off fast. I know the Brawler system is another one where you can just quick do testing. As compared to hand timing, it was a little bit tougher where you just have to kind of get people in and get it all set up and how they record it different like that. Another thing too, when it comes to technology, I do want to give a shout out. We've been using the Tully system, and when it comes to recording, it has been phenomenal. It's a QR code, athletes scan it, find themselves, find their name, and then when we do any of our running or jumping stuff like that, hey, you ran this time. Boom, I can put my 3.3 in. I ran 14.5 miles an hour, and I jumped to 21. So instead of having to write it down on a piece of paper, or us as coaches have to write it down and then punch it in later, they do it. It spits it all out for you. So that is something I highly recommend. Next one, non-negotiable equipment. If I was going to set up a weight room working with youth and high school athletes, what are 3 things that I couldn't pass on? Number 1 is bands. We use bands all the time. Doesn't matter what it comes for running, with resistance, with assistance, with different types of starts with it. Then when it comes to the weight room, like I said, we don't have actual machines in here. So we'll use it for our lat pulls. We'll use it for our rows. We'll use it for adding accommodating resistance to the bars. So there are just so many different things. You can just use them for circuits, for mobility work. There's so many different things. So number 1 piece of equipment, non-negotiable, bands all day. Next one I'd shoot for is I would have to choose either between a dumbbell or a bar. You can do a lot with either ones. So again, working with youth, I'd probably lean more towards the dumbbells, just because they're a little bit easier to handle and you can coach them up a little bit easier. But also bars, there are different sizes. So in here currently we have a 15, a 35, and the normal 45-pound bars. That way we're able to accommodate everybody at different ages so that we progress them. And once we see that they're, strong enough to hit good goblet squats, then we progress them to that light bar and the heavy bar. Same thing when it comes to working with Olympic lifts. So either bar or dumbbell, I definitely pick one of those. And then I have to shoot for a prowler. There's so many different things you can do with a prowler, that whether you're obviously pushing it for sprints, you're pulling it, you're backward sled dragging, you can use it for a slide sled drag. And then different stuff you can also do is different punches with it, or high velocity rows. So the last one I definitely have to say is a sled. Now, when it comes to facility, one thing that does get overlooked is flooring. So in here, we have the rubber flooring in the weight room and we have the turf. So we're lucky to do that for our speed and agility work. When it came to other facilities, like I said, when I was at University of Indianapolis, we had a great, nice floor for all the racks. It was all the same. And then we had a turf out there, and it was a 40-yard turf, along with a Mondo track. So even if you want to do some running stuff, we had the indoor facility to do all that. At Butler, we would have obviously the rubber weight room, but then other stuff you'd have to go up in the hallway where it was a nice smooth concrete surface, or at times we would be able to utilize the basketball court depending on if it was being used or not. Lincoln Memorial, we use that hallway a lot when it came to having that smooth surface. So we would use towels a lot, hamstring curls. So we'd ultimately use them like you would sliders on turf, which we're using right now. But another one too is plate pushes. We use that a lot, or just different type of plate work where you put the smooth side down and push it. Did have one story where on top of Tex Turner Arena at Lincoln Memorial, they actually had a painted floor, and it was my first week working with the athletes. I had my GA running golf team, had different stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, we could do plate pushes up here. We put towels underneath them so that it wouldn't scrape the floor up. Well, if you're not watching the athletes, towels fall off, they're not putting them back on, and we scrape the heck out of that paint. So yeah, nothing like day one. We had that issue, and then as we're carrying the plates down, my G actually slipped. We would have to walk down a hill because I didn't know how to get back down. He slipped, let the weight go, And as it's going down, I'm like, oh man, we're going to break a window too. So not only did we rip the floor, we're going to hit the window. Luckily, hit a concrete pillar, stopped before. So that was a savior on day one. But yeah, flooring is going to depend on what you're able to do. There are certain times that you have straight concrete or you just have straight concrete underneath and you're doing Olympic lifts and dropping it all the time, it's going to slowly chip it away. I actually was visiting ETSU and they are a Olympic, they have Olympic satellite spot there. And as we were walking there, they actually ended up with a 3-foot hole just because it was on the corner of one of their platforms. And just over time of all the Olympic lifts, it just kept slowly breaking away. And just said somebody randomly stepped there once and almost twisted their ankle. They pulled it back and like, oh my goodness, we have to fix it. So depending on where you're at, same thing, second floor. If you're first floor, second floor. If you're on the second floor and you're to be doing Olympic lifts, that pounding, that constant shaking, heavy deadlifts, different stuff like that, you have to now take into account of what's around you, what's underneath you. I went to visit one of my buddies who's at a local college here, and underneath them was the athletic training when they're being taught down there. So they want it more quiet. They don't want that constant boom banging on the floors. So there are certain times where they could do Olympic lifts and deadlifts, and certain times they couldn't. So again, even you might have the facility to do everything, but if you're second floor and you got to work around different people, then it pertains to how you write that program. But yeah, flooring is a big thing that you do have to take an account of. The next one, storage and organization. How you organize your weight room and how quick you're able to set up stuff is also going to be a factor into how you write your program. Here, fortunately enough, we just have all our med balls right next to the turf and the weight room, so you can quick run, grab them. Same thing at the other facilities I've been at. Usually I have nice storage, trying to keep everything off the floor as much as you can, where they're easily accessible. But if there's times where it's not, and all of a sudden, you want to use landmines and you have to, certain times for us, we have to set up 2 or 3 landmines using plates. Well, if it's not set up beforehand and we're in the middle of a session, depending on time, time is valuable. And especially at the college setting, you have this much time, 45 minutes, a half hour, or an hour. That is all that's programmed into it. You have to get it done. Same thing here. Our classes are on the hour, so we have to make sure that we're moving fast. If something's not set up, you have to be able to quick swing it. Or like I said, if I wanted to use the racks and the whole football team's in there and now they have them, we have to come up with something else. Or yeah, there might be different types of pull-ups we wanted to do or different stuff. So you have to be able to think on top of your head and just make those adjustments on the fly sometimes. Next one is talking about programming for mixed group. So currently right now we have a couple sessions where we'll just call it athletic performance, and we'll have 8-year-olds all the way up to 18-year-olds in the same group. We then break down how the speed agility is very similar then when it comes to obviously the power version of it. The older kids will be doing either Olympic lifts or different weighted jumps, where the younger ones are going to be body weight or lightweight jumps, or more working on that landing, sticking, different stuff like that. So within a session, we make those changes. Ultimately, the way we say it is we're able to individualize within the group setting. So that's how we're able to do it here. When it came to the other levels, you're talking about mixed groups too when it's different athletes. Ultimately, the athletes that we work with, it is training age 0 to 3. So there's not going to be much specialization. They're just trying to become the best athletes. I know sports specialization is a big term out there, but what does that truly mean? You're going to be doing your sport to get specialized at your sport. When it comes to training, we're just trying to build the biggest, most powerful athletes, get you moving well, keeping you healthy through full range of motion movements, or be able to be the best athlete to put yourself in those spots to take over other people that aren't training. So when it comes to mixed group, and I know when I was at Brookfield East, I just go off the seasons and understand, all right, most of the seasons, like right now we're getting towards the end of fall. Cross country, they're finishing up this weekend at state. I work with a bunch of swimmers. They still have 2 weeks left. And then like football season's going on. If they made playoffs or not, you'd have to kind of determine off that. So ultimately, I would work my way back, figure out when their end is or about where they want to end. And then 3 to 4 weeks out, we're going to be doing a power phase to make sure that they're feeling light and fresh. Max strength right before that. So you're hitting something heavy. Usually if it's your your primetime starters, it might hit an 85 to 90%, but others that are trying to get after it, I mean, you have a multi-year, I mean, sometimes you have different multi-sport athlete, or they're just trying to, they're younger, trying to work their way on up. Well, we want to make sure that they're continuing to get better. So that's why I hit kind of that max strength phase there. And then depending on what we use for the rep scheme for strength beforehand. So when it comes to that mixed group, we do a lot of stuff very similar. Injuries and different stuff happen, or you might have to make special accommodations just because of their training age. But for the most part, everybody trains very similar as we're just trying to build the best athletes. Last one is a psychological factor, looking into different stuff like what's on the walls, whether it's motivation, whether it's team pictures, whether it's just the color of the walls, that, and then playlists of music. So first on the walls, in here we hang flags because that's where our athletes are going. So we want to make sure that that's a motivation for them. Hey, if I do really well and work hard, I'm going to get my, where I go to college is going to be hung up here. And it's kind of that pride thing. Normally, I really haven't done too much when it comes to like the motivational stuff. We have some here, but normally it was just logos of the school and just kept it very plain because you had so many athletes from so many different teams in there. So you didn't want to favor one or the other. I know at Lincoln Memorial, we had a donation board. So if people donated, we put their name up there just to give recognition to who helped build that weight room when it came to the fundraising side. Playlists. Right now, you just got to try to figure out what the kids want, especially when it comes to max day, a little bit louder, and ask a few of them what you want to listen to. Otherwise, throughout the day, I prefer a little app called Mixcloud where it actually switches up. I like country music, but obviously country music comes really slow. Kids want their pop, rap, different stuff like that. So Mixcloud gives you DJ mixes. So it gives you a little different variety. Otherwise, I use Pandora. Spotify's always there. You can just have them make a Spotify playlist. Big thing though, I make sure that it's clean. These kids, I know they listened to it when I was younger too. Limp Bizkit had their song out there. But it's ultimately, I don't want to add to what they're hearing when it comes to cussing, anything like that into the weight room. If they want to listen to it outside of here, they can be fine, be with it. But when it comes to this weight room, I'll try to make sure that it is a safe spot for them to go, and there's no need for that extra cussing, especially at that age. There's just no need for it, and you never know who's going to walk in the door. If mom or dad walks in the door and they're hearing that, it's like, do I really want to train here? Same thing at the high school level. I remember going back to my alma mater and talking to the guy that was running the weight room, and he had cussing going on. I'm like, what are you doing? These kids don't need to be listening to it. So he knew kind of if I was ever back, he had to quick switch it. But yeah, different stuff is getting that music, because a lot of them right now, music is their motivation. Figure out what they want to listen to and kind of play off that. I just talked to one of my college athletes where they're just like, we listen to metal music all the time. Well, to me, I'm sorry, that strength coach right there, that's what you want to listen to. But if that's not always going to be motivating for athletes and it doesn't make it be a place they want to show up and really get after it, especially if it's like max outs and stuff, you might want to switch it up. just want to put it out there. But yep, you as coaches, you're setting that tone right from the start. So there's a quick wrap up of how your facility is going to ultimately drive programming and how you're writing up programming. This is episode 1. We're going to also be going out and meeting up with different strength coaches to learn about them and what they do with their programs. I know as I was coming through, that was something that was a game changer to help me grow fast. I would make trips to different universities that I had connections to. I had graduated a bunch of other strength coaches, so I went to Wisconsin a couple times, reached out to Duke with a Lincoln Memorial connection, and just go sit with them, talk with them, watch how they ran their sessions, and then ask them great questions. So ultimately, that was kind of in the back of my mind when it came to this podcast, and that's what I'm going to be able to do. So hopefully you guys are able to learn a little bit more about that. But if you liked it, like and subscribe.